Hey, coaches, welcome to this edition of the Basic B-Ball podcast. Super excited to have our guest on today, Coach Tony Miller from Bob Jones University. Coach, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. We've tried this before, so hoping we get a smooth go around this time. No power outages, so excited to get that going.
Yeah.
I was hoping just to get a quick intro background for you of where you've been at. I know it hasn't been a ton of movement for you, but just kind of curious how you have gotten and progressed to the role you're at currently at Bob Jones.
Yeah. So I was actually graduated from there in 2005 and stayed on and became a faculty member there. And we didn't have sports at the school at the time. And I was working on a degree, and part of the requirements was for me to do an internship. And the year that I had to do the internship is when they announced that we were going to have intercollegiate sports. And so I got on as the director of basketball operations for the men's team. And after about a semester, it kind of morphed into I fulfilled all my requirements for the class, and it just kind of morphed into an assistant coach position, volunteer position. And then we actually went through a coaching change about 5 years in. The guy who was the head coach went straight to becoming the athletic director. He was splitting at the time. And then the guy that he hired was actually a friend of mine. And so kind of a unique situation where a new coach comes in, but they retain part of the old staff. And so I've actually been part of the program since the beginning, and am now the right-hand guy for Coach Burton Uaro, and he does a fantastic job, and we work together really well and are really good friends. So it's a great setup that I have.
Yeah, that's awesome, Coach. So been at Bob Jones pretty much your whole coaching career. I think you had mentioned previously to me that you had coached high school a little bit, and then have now obviously been in college realm since then. But Bob Jones, you guys have had a super successful run, especially this past season, winning 21 games. We're undefeated at home. I believe ranked 4th at the end of the season for the regular season. So there's a ton of success. Anything you kind of can speak to that of how that's culminated to how it's been? Has that been something you guys have been building up to, and what are some things that have gotten you there?
Yeah, it's a unique place as far as sports go, just from not having sports for so long. We're approaching our 100th year of having a university, but we've only had sports for, around 15 years. And it is something that the coaching staff, the first coaching staff, I mean, we had some really good success early on. I mean, we beat a Division I team, and we were at kind of a higher level. And then we kind of moved down to where we should have been, to Division II, which is the size of the schools and type of schools. And I mean, that's even one thing that I've come to really understand is like playing on an equal playing ground in large part has to do with just the type of school that you are, and the fit of the students that you have in comparison to the opponents that you're playing and that kind of thing. And so we're a non-scholarship school. We were playing against scholarship schools, which is for a different day, but there's a difference between those types of athletes and the athletes that are at the non-scholarship schools. And so it is we've kind of embraced who we are, and it is like you said, I think you used the word like culmination of a lot of intentional parts that have a lot more to do than just the X's and O's. Those have been a big part of what we do, but the culture of our program has been the priority, and the fit of the students, and not just the students, but also their families. Our families play a really important role. I think that's important when you talk about your program being a family, is that you're recruiting not just the kid, but you're also recruiting his family, whether you want to admit that or not, just simply because of the amount of time that the family has already poured into the student athletes. And so by the time they get there, I think it can be a big help. It's not the same at the college level. I have a lot of coaches that coach at the high school level and interact with them. And it's not, my interactions with the parents is not the same as their actual interaction with the parents. But even at our level, the parents, when you have supportive parents, that can be a huge help to your program. So like little things like that, we're very intentional about those kinds of things, and they add up to the result that you see out on the floor. And so that's one thing that we talk about a lot, is that what you see on the floor is a reflection of our program. And I know everybody would say that, but again, it has so much more to do with the things that are non-basketball X's and O's related. The people, the kinds of people that we have, the things that we spend our time on outside of basketball. We're with these kids for the season I think our season this last year was close to 7 months, and the kids are only in school for about 9 months. And so you are there for about half of a month to 3/4 of a month, and then you start. And then when the season's over, this last year, we were in school for another, I think, like 5 weeks or so, and then the school year's over. So you're with them a lot, and we invest in them a lot more than just the basketball, although the basketball is really important, obviously. So I think that's a long way of answering. There's a lot that goes into it, and that has come about from a lot of trial and error, a lot of work, a lot of borrowing, steal. I'm a great thief. I admit that I don't think there's anything new under the sun in coaching. It's just kind of a reincarnation of something else that's already existed. But I do think that good coaches, really good coaches, are the ones who are able to take all of the potential things that are out there and like sift down the best, so that then you can create something that fits your program and who you are and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's been a lot of work, and we don't do it perfect, but I do feel like what we do is the right way for us. It's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, it's awesome. One of the things you mentioned in there was you guys finding the right guys and the right families. And I think it's tough recruiting at a non-scholarship school I think that's a big thing to offer student athletes as a scholarship, and not being able to have that for you guys. What does that look like for you? And what do you guys look for in those families, in those student athletes? What are some of those key points you're looking for in those conversations as you're recruiting guys?
Yeah, I didn't mention this, but we are a religious institution. It's a Christian institution. And so that's hard, and some people don't like to hear what I'm about to say, but we don't have the same pool that everybody else, even that's like similar to us. You can somewhat comparable to like the D3 level, and D3 coaches will tell you like they're not recruiting the same thing that the D2s and the D1s are. And so our pool becomes a lot smaller just simply because of fit of the kid to the school. And that can potentially sound like elitist, like you don't fit at our school, but that's not really what it is. It's just like that's the kind of school that we are. And certain kids aren't going to be able to thrive there because they don't have the same goals, the same standards, the same. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the faster we can identify the kids who are the potential fits, that doesn't guarantee, obviously, that they still come to our school, but that's a starting point. And so even the way that we find kids is different. We very rarely go to an AAU event and just sit down on the end of a sideline and watch kids and pick out the kids that we think are good and that fit. Because, again, I could spend a whole day at an event and come to find out at the end of the day, like none of those kids are actually fits for our school. They couldn't, they wouldn't want it. The other part of it is it's not just what I get out of it. It's also like what they get out of it, because we've had kids that have come and like, they haven't been fits for the school. They don't have a good experience. Like I don't want that for them either. So it not only saves us some hard times, it also saves the kid from some hard times as well. And that too has been a process. And even changing like the kids that we recruit, where they come from. We're in South Carolina, and just simply because of the state money that's available, it's advantageous for us to recruit kids that get high grades that live in South Carolina, and even better if they live within driving distance of the school. And now you're talking about even a smaller pool. And so I have kids all the time that reach out from Texas and Florida and North Carolina. I'd love for those kids to come, but realistically, they're not going to be able to afford it at the end of the day, most likely. And so why take them down that entire path when I know this? And there are kind of cues and markers that we can identify whether a kid even is going to have a shot to be able to get to the school or whatever. But again, that just comes with you understanding who your school is and the like we said, the fit of the potential student athlete. And it's hard work, but when you do find the kids that can fit, you can create some pretty special things. And we've been very fortunate, especially, I mean, really from the beginning, but especially here in recent memory since COVID, to get some really special kids that are from some really special families and it's resulted in some pretty special seasons.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think one of the other things you touched on is not only recruiting those kids with high quality character and from good families and stuff like that. You mentioned you guys kind of work on that as you're there. Of you guys are spending time with them outside of basketball. I was just hoping you could touch on that, of some of the stuff you guys do outside of your basketball activities. What are some stuff you guys do to build kind of culture, character, and help these young men?
Yeah, but part of it, a big part of it is just, I think, time spent with them and being intentional about how you do that and finding ways to do that. Of course, they're busy. Any student athlete's busy with school and with athletics and training outside of it and weightlifting and all that. But, we'll have times in the preseason that's dedicated to, for instance, I'll get with the guys and we have two of them over at a time over to our house. And so it's me and my wife and my three small kids. I think that's a big part of it. Like you talk about your program being a family. Part of being a family is giving them the opportunity to impact other family members. And so we almost adopt those kids in. So like even those meals where they come over, they always ask my wife to make the same lasagna, pasta, brownies, ice cream at the end. They look forward to that. They come over, we eat. They go out in the driveway afterwards and play basketball with my 7-year-old. And they haven't have a chance to impact my kids. I would like to think that my kids have a chance to impact them and soften them up some a little bit. Just quick story, but like this last year, my daughter, who's 5, her best friend is Kenny on the basketball team that graduated. Well, Kenny's from Atlanta and comes from an awesome family. And it was funny, towards the end of the year, we had a practice and she came in. She didn't come say hello to me. I just hear her yell, "Kenny!" and run across the gym and jump up into his arms and give him a hug. And I think those kinds of like interactions and opportunities to build relationships that are away from the basketball court and informal areas. I kind of had the advantage too that not every person on a coaching staff has, but my real job is to teach at the university. And so a lot of those kids like Kenny and others, like they're actually my majors, they're in my major. And so I have them in the classroom and that lets me keep an eye on their grades, but it also allows me interaction, before class, after class, just to dap a kid up, ask him how he's doing. We take time, typically on Wednesdays. It varies from year to year, but we'll take time on Wednesdays and actually take about an hour before practice, and it forces us, we'll actually shorten practice time. So we don't practice the full length all the time on Wednesdays because for the first hour we're in the classroom. And sometimes some years we go through a book and it's a book on leadership or being a man or choices and, following the path, like just stuff like that again have nothing to do with basketball, but more have to do with person development. And for us coaching men, those young men becoming men, fathers, husbands, impacts, people that impact their community. And so being intentional about non-basketball related things, and then obviously using basketball as an opportunity to teach and talk about those things. And, even things, informal times like bus trips and van trips and that kind of thing, they pretty much pick their van at the beginning of the year, and so you get quote unquote stuck with the same guys all year, and those are the guys that you end up with informal conversations, and it opens up other conversations. There's one other thing that we do. We sometimes will have on the road. We'll call it forced family fun. We stole that from a program up in Pennsylvania, where we make them come and do something stupid like a game or something like that together. But a cohesive team is a tough team to beat. A team that is together, and you hear all the time, like there's examples of teams that didn't like each other and won championships, teams that were the best of friends and won championships. I get that there's examples out there of both, but as a coach, the most fun teams and the most special teams that we've had are the ones that are the closest teams and that care about each other. And that's not something that just accidentally happens because they're of the same character or whatever. There is some effort that has to go into that, and those are just some of the ways that we do that.
Yeah, even like beyond basketball success, it just makes your life and your coaching so much more enjoyable when you're able like to have experiences like you said with your daughter running in on the court, and makes your life easier, better, just all that stuff, even beyond wins and losses.
Yeah, for sure.
Which you guys have. Like I said, you a bunch of success this past season. One of the things I like stuck out to me was you guys, your offensive efficiency and leading Division II, NCCAA, and field goal percentage and points per possession. So just super efficient on the offensive end, and a couple of those like efficiency statistics. Excuse me. Just hoping you could touch on that of what has contributed to that success and that efficiency you guys have had.
Yeah, the offense has been a journey, really from about COVID. We made the switch over to running more conceptually based offense, and have spent a ton of time talking with coaches, both just in meetings, observing practices. I have my own podcast that I kind of cheat and use it as a chance to talk to coaches that are a higher level than I am, to just pick their brain about things, and just taking things that I think fit our personnel, and that frankly that we enjoy coaching, and putting those things together into a system. And this year is probably, again, like, I feel like it was the peak of where we've been overall in the last 12 years, to where I think we had the right people and the right system, alignment, how we played, style of play, and I can't understate just the personnel too. This just was incredible this last year. We talk a lot about, and we were more intentional this year than ever before, talking about shot selection and decision making. We talk a lot in our program on both sides of the basketball about making the best decision, rather than just having a bunch of rules like, you will take this kind of shot, you won't take this kind of shot. And even in that even manifests itself in like film sessions, where we talk a lot about, and I'll do this out on the court too. A kid will make a decision or take a shot or make a certain pass, and I'll just simply ask them, like, that was a good pass or that was a good shot. Is there something maybe that we could have done differently, or maybe that would have been better? And it's just this constant attempt to do better, to become better, to do it better, to coach better, to be sharper, to make the better read, to make a faster read, to take a better shot. And so when you talk about those things, and it's reflected, it's not just in talking about it, but even our drills, like, have been so intentional about the kinds of drills that we use, and when we use them, and how we use them, and what we emphasize within the drills that we have. We've tried to really simplify things. So probably a lot of people know 4 factors. 4 factors is like what our program lives by. Like, everything that we do, we look at those 4 factors. And on the defensive side, which is really what I'm about to say, is nothing more than, like, if you're focusing on those things on offense, then what do we need to do on defense to stop the other team from doing that? We talk a ton about like kills, getting 3 stops in a row, and we'll take basically those 5 categories. So the 4 factors, then the kills. We even have a board in our room that shows, we track all of those numerically and statistically, which, being analytically driven, I can talk about that if you want to as well, but that's been another really big part of our program. But we'll take those 5 categories and we basically reverse engineer everything. Practices, what we talk about, the drills that we use, how things are structured, what our film sessions are about. Literally everything is reverse engineered from those 5 factors. And so when you come to our program, if a kid's been in our program for any length of time, you ask him, like, what are the most important things? They're going to tell you something in some form of verbiage that has to do with those 4 factors, and then the 5th one on the defensive side. So, being very specific about what we're trying to achieve and how we achieve it. I think the simplicity has actually allowed us to become even better and even sharper, because the guys know exactly what it's going to take for us to win a game, a championship, whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to hear on the analytics side of that. But before that, you had mentioned being more concept based, but then also a big part of your guys' efficiency is talking a lot about shot selection. Just curious how you guys implement that in your program, and you guys implement that through film and meetings. Is that something you're talking about every practice? Are you really hitting it at the beginning of the year and then kind of letting see the fruit of that later? But mind talking on that a little bit?
Yeah, it's from the very beginning of the season. It's one of the first drills that we do. We have a game that's called 7s for 70, and we rate our shots number wise. So a 9 is a wide open layup, either on the break or like a big advantage layup. A 7 is a shot that's in range, in rhythm, with room. A 5 is a shot that's not one of those factors. I mean, like one of those things is missing. A 3 is basically, if you come to one of our practices, it's something that if guys are standing over on the sidelines, you're getting pulled out of the game pretty quickly by one of them, not by one of us. And so we'll play basically that game, and it's scored based off of the shot. It doesn't matter if it goes in or not. It's, if it's a 7, then you get 7 points on that possession. We got to the point even about quarter of the way through the season, I think, halfway through the season, where we were running that drill. And if you took something other than a 7 or a 9, then you had to sit out a possession. So now your team's down a man and you're playing 5-on-4 on the other end. And there's no faster way to get people's attention than to force your other 4 teammates to play a man down on defense. And then very quickly it becomes accountability, and they're holding each other accountable. And that's another aspect of it. We, Coach Uaro and I really put an emphasis on the things that I just mentioned, so that by the end of the year, we're not really doing much coaching. That's like peak, we feel like, season. And there were a couple times at the end of this last year where we just sat and watched most of the time, because they were holding each other accountable, which is another one of our core values. We can talk about those too, but that being, again, very specific in what good shots are, what aren't. And then that goes back to our film session, like you said. So we're sitting in film session and we just simply talk about, was that a 7? Was that a 9? Was that a 5? And it becomes, they understand that this is not, it's not personal. This is the shot our team has to have in order for us to be able to have the chance to shoot a high enough percentage to be able to win the game. So again, it's not my opinion versus their opinion. There's a standard that has been set as to what type of shot that was. There's no emotion in that. There's no, like I said, it's no opinion of that person against mine or whatever. And it really is our shot, because this is what our shots are: 7, 9s, and 5s, and we're only going to stand for 7s and 9s. And so when it becomes a we shot, it does change the kinds of shots that you shoot, and the kinds of shots that you hunt, and the kinds of shots that you make the extra pass to. And we don't talk about selfish, unselfish shots. I hear a lot of commentators and people, guy makes the extra pass, and it's like, well, that was a really unselfish play. And then he threw it to a guy who's shooting like 25% in the corner. It's like, cool, you were unselfish, but your team still lost because unselfish guy kept giving the ball to 25% three-point shooter. Like, it's best decision. So like I said, we don't talk about selfish, unselfish. We talk about what's the best decision here. Where was the best pass that we could have made in that possession? And when you talk about it all the time, guys know the kinds of shots that we need to take to win, and it just naturally leads to shooting the highest percentage shot. So yeah, that even kind of dictates the whole, like, should we take mid-range jump shots or not? Like, if a guy's shooting 55, 60% from mid-range, like, please shoot the shot. Like, that's a 7 for us. But if you're not, that's not going to win us basketball games. So that's just another example of how kind of like the analytics determine the kinds of shots that we take. But I can't be shouting out like 0.61 points per possession shot you just took. Like, that's not going to mean anything. So creating something that's understandable for them to comprehend, and easy to communicate with each other. And, we can communicate that very quickly on the sideline. Like, that was a 5, or like, yeah, like, that's a 9. Awesome type of thing too. So, yeah, hope that answered your question.
That's awesome. I think that's great. And then I think that's something guys buy into as well. Like you said, I think that was a great 7 for 70, I think was the game you called it. Mm-hmm. You get guys buying into finding that good shot. Like, you're not celebrating a make or a miss. Like, you're celebrating the right decision, which it's being completely process based rather than worrying about an outcome or anything like that. I think that's great. You kind of were talking about analytics. Was hoping you could talk about that a little bit more and how you guys use that in your program with those 4 factors plus the kills, and then any other ways you guys are implementing that in practices and games.
Yeah, another example of just reverse engineering things. Going back to that, if we talked long enough, you would see that everything is like interwoven together. So, for instance, when we talk about free throws, being able to make more, the old adage, like we want to make more than the opponent shoots. Well, how do you do that? And probably most people are going to be like, well, you just play more aggressive. Like, okay, kind of, but we've actually designed our offense to create more opportunities for us to be able to get to the basket, get fouled, make the shot, go to the free throw line, make the free throw, or at least get fouled and go and shoot more free throws and make more free throws and that kind of thing. So even the way that our offense is designed, it's designed to maximize the four factors that then allow us to be able to have the chance to win the game. So, for those that are or aren't familiar with it, you win the effective field goal percentage and you win one other category, and you're probably winning like 90% of the games that you play in. So if we can create an offense that allows us to at least have a chance to shoot the highest field goal percentage, which usually comes through creating space, big advantage shots, either off the bounce in the paint, finishing. We work on finishing a ton. And finishing is not just being aggressive and being strong and going up through contact with two hands or playing off of 2 feet. Like, those are things that you use to finish well. But if you're going we just play off of 2 feet and we go with two hands, that's not going to ensure that you're going to shoot the highest percentage shot. So we talk a ton about finishing, about when to use certain finishing moves, about how to use your dribble, for instance, to keep the ball alive inside, to then draw the attention of perimeter defenders so that they turn and look. And then we exploit that by getting to open spaces on the floor that creates more three-point attempts on inside-out kick-out shots. Or we work a ton on throwing the ball inside so that we can get inside out. And we work a ton on split action when the ball goes in the post, all in an effort to generate more shots at the basket and more shots from the three-point line. So again, everything is literally if these are the four things that we're targeting for, then how do we create the best opportunity to win each of those categories? So even like our turnovers. So, it really is like percentages, like turnover percentage and rebounding percentage and that kind of thing. I feel like if you get too in the weeds with it, the guys aren't really going to understand all of it. So we sometimes keep it a little simpler, like win the rebounding battle, even though that doesn't always guarantee that you actually win the factor. But talking about when we come in the room, in the team room at halftime, like those are the only things we talk about. We don't talk about other stuff that we're just mad about. We literally just focus in on those four things. And that allows us too, as a staff, to not go off on tangents and waste our time and get lost talking about things that may or may not win us the game. And so keeping things concise that wise, number wise, is important to communicate to your players so that they get an idea. So like, even the kills, it's pretty much standard out there. You get 7 kills, most people are winning their basketball games. You get anything above that, and you're usually not losing. So we keep track of that. We visually keep track of that. Our manager has taped Bruins claws. So we're the Bob Jones Bruins. So we've got a secondary logo that's a bear claw. So when we get a kill, we'll tape up a bear claw up on the wall. And so the guys literally see that. And guys on the bench will be yelling when we're on defense, like, this is our second stop. We need one more. We need one more. So the guys focus in, focus up, play tough. We get a stop. The bench goes nuts. We tape up another bear claw on the wall. So even stuff like that contributes to our culture and keeping guys accountable and encouraging one another. And like I said, everything's intertwined, and there are a billion numbers that you can focus on at our level with the staff that we have. And I think also with your players, like understanding, if you get too complex, I don't think it's as effective. So these are the things that we found effective for our program to communicate to our players.
I think that's great, man. It's simplified and it's unified. That's the other thing. Like getting a kill, that's not a one guy thing. That takes all 5 guys, and then all 5 guys working together to get a rebound to finish that stop. Yep. And it's all those guys working together. It's not just talking about a shell drill, making sure the hand's in the right spot or anything like that. It's like very simple and just get it done and get your 3 stops. And like you said, the stats definitely favor getting those kills.
Yeah.
One thing you were kind of talking about in there was working on a few different things, whether it was finishing, amongst different like decision-making skills. And I know small-sided games are kind of one of your things you are known for, especially in the basketball social media realm, is definitely, I think, one of the things kind of under your cap. And I was just hoping, number one, of just kind of talk about, if people don't know what is a small-sided game, And then once you cover that, of how do you guys use that, and what are some of those drills look like of working on finishing or working on keeping the dribble alive and things like that for you guys?
Yeah, probably in the truest sense of the word, like your small sided games are usually like 3-on-3, 4-on-3. You can do outnumbered, or you can just do, like I said, 3-on-3, equal numbers to start out with. Again, I try to keep things simple for people, so I'll go to anything that's not 5-on-5. So 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 2-on-3, whatever. But even with the finishing early on, we'll teach them finishing on air just to show them what they are and for them to work on them. That very quickly becomes, if we still do stuff on air, we're literally talking about like 1 minute on each side. You go through each finish 2 times or 1 time even as the season progresses. And then by the end of the year, we're not really working on air at all. We usually are playing a lot, but we'll progress pretty quickly to either one-on-one or even just having like a coach out there that can be there. And what they're doing is, on any small-sided game, you're really training their eyes along with the skills as well, helping them understand how to play with other people. And that's where all of us have played. You go to a random gym to play pickup, and there's nobody there that and you have no idea where that guy's going, and it's really hard to play with somebody else. But you go to the gym with your 3 or 4 other buddies, and you guys just run the gym the entire night because you know where each other is going. You don't even have to look. Everything's kind of like you just sync together real well. We're trying to get that with our players. So teaching them how to use space, reading where their defender is, their primary defender, a secondary defender, understanding spacing and keeping spacing throughout a possession. And, we can use small-sided games to teach really just about anything through either constraints where you keep them from doing something, or incentives, like you have to get a paint touch before 3 or whatever. So a billion different things that you can do, and ways that you can use small-sided games. But in relationship to the skills that we're teaching, like I said, we usually very quickly go to some sort of 1v1, either with a coach that's standing there, or it could be as simple as just having a guy underneath with a pad and having them move around to different positions, because finishes are really based off of where your defender is. So is it small advantage, like they're just on our hip? Is it big advantage where they're behind me? Is there little to no advantage where that defender's in front of me? Well, like I was alluding to before, being strong and landing on 2 and going up with 2 hands doesn't mean it's going to be a good shot. It's really dependent on where your defender is. And then based off of where your defender is determines the kind of finish that we have. And so we have to teach that early on. We'll go pretty quickly to, especially if it's like a small group workout or a 2-man workout. I at least like to have 2 guys in the gym, and we'll play a 1v1 like pound finishing game where they're playing against different types of advantages. And then you get into the games where you're playing 2-man action on one half of the court, and it starts with a pound finish. And does help come? If help comes, then pitch it, and let's play with each other off of that. Or is it 3-on-3? And that's a question that I get a lot is, how many small-sided games do you use in practice? How long do you go? Typically, our small-sided games are like 5 to 6 minutes. They're pretty quick. You get a ton of reps in. We usually are using small-sided games more when we have younger players and we're teaching them those things I was mentioning, like space and skill and reading my defender and that kind of thing. We didn't do a whole lot of small-sided games this last year, but we had a veteran team. We played mostly 5-on-5. And so they really serve like multi-purposes of teaching the decision-making component that's necessary to be a good player, teaching skill, which is necessary to being a good player, and then just simply teaching how to play within a team concept where there's 4 other guys out there on the floor on both sides of the ball. So, they're like the Swiss Army. Small-sided games are like the Swiss Army knife of basketball drills. And, hopefully I got everything in there.
No, that was awesome. A couple of questions to follow up on that. You alluded to some different finishes you guys have, and whether it's small, big, medium advantage. Are you pretty much giving them a toolbox of, hey, here's 3 to 5 finishes, and you use these in situation XYZ, and what does that look like for you guys?
We usually have about 7 finishes that we use. So we'll use like a straight finish. You beat a guy, big advantage, just go by him laid up. A little bit smaller advantage, maybe you go by him, but he's like right there. So you might use like an inside reach to get out past him. Again, you go out past him, or use that inside hand, more likely you get fouled. Now you're going to the free throw line, like I was talking about. We may use like a same foot, same hand. We also use, we'll go into like a Barkley if they're completely in front of you, turn around, back them down, Jalen Brunson style. I changed the name, by the way, to Brunson's this year. So if anybody calls them that, I want you to let me know. So I'm trying to get it to stick. We'll see. Nobody knows who Barkley is anymore. All the old guys will like that. They'll just refuse to call it that. But I'm calling it Brunson's now anyway. So if you've seen Jalen Brunson play, turns and gets out of that. That's one that you get into the Barkley / Brunson. Defenders turn and look. That actually creates more three-point attempts for us. So that one's huge for multiple reasons for us. We'll use the Steve Nash. I don't have a new player for him yet, but just dribbling underneath the basket to give yourself an advantage. Keeping that dribble alive is really big as far as the pace and space that offense that we run. And then there's a couple other ones too. Some guys like floaters, some guys don't. So that's kind of goes back to the whatever you like to coach type of thing, and that's analytically driven as well. So yeah, there's like 7. I have realized I found that like most guys usually gravitate to 3 or 4. However, your best finishers are probably going to have more finishing tools in the tool belt, and you can get creative. There's a couple of guys that are friends of mine on social media that they got all kinds of finishes they can use, and there's nothing wrong with those. I don't know that I'm going to teach my high school team like 15 finishes, but I do want to give them enough tools to be able to give them, I call them just solutions to what the problems the defense gives you. And then based off of those problems, we can either make a play for ourselves or make a play for a teammate that creates some sort of like big advantage through a shot or through another drive.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important with all those tools you said, like if our layups or finishings are tool package, man, if people know how to use it. It's one thing if you have 15 finishes, but if you're mediocre at all of them, it really doesn't matter. It looks like a bunch of average missed layups isn't really going to help you a whole lot and contribute to that efficiency.
Yeah, sure.
You kind of mentioned there's like a billion different ways, probably an infinite different ways you can run small-sided games. And just curious if you have any advice of if I'm a coach and struggling with anything, what's a way I can construct my own small-sided game? I know you have pretty much a whole playbook of different small-sided games, but I also think anybody can come up with one just depending what their need is. And just curious how you specifically, how you create small-sided games for different needs or different things you guys need to get better at.
It's one of those things that the more you do it, the easier it'll get. You'll be able to just like anything else. Coaches have coached for a long time. They can come up with something pretty quickly. I do think that drill creation, small-sided game creation becomes like a coaching superpower, but it is one of those that you have to use quite often to come up with it. Coaches have been doing breakdown drills forever, so I didn't come up with small-sided games. So I'm sure. I mean, we've been doing 3-on-2, 2-on-1 drill for who knows how long, and so I'm sure John Wooden used to use small-sided games. Everybody's using small-sided games, and that's probably where I would start. Is what's your offense or what's your defense? What do you see most often in those, or what do you guys run most often? So if you're, for instance, we started doing a lot more Princeton stuff this last year. So we just play a ton of like 3-man action Princeton stuff. So like point over, stick a guy in the slot at the elbow in the pinch post and the guy in the corner, and then play 3-man action out of that. And it could be something as simple as that. You could do ball screen stuff. If you're a ball screen team, stick a guy in the corner, in the near side corner, come set him a ball screen, play your normal roll shake action or pick and pop and then play to the next guy action. If you play that for a while and then after a while have a ball handler again, have a big guy, stick a guy over in the other corner. And so now help doesn't come from the same spot. Usually help's given from behind the guy that was shaken up from the corner. Some teams now are given help from the other side corner. And so being able to pitch it to the other side, and that could very easily then become a 4-man drill. Because now if help's given on that side, usually the guy who's guarding on the wing is rotating down to the corner, which is going to hopefully force your guy when he catches in the corner to make that one more pass up to the wing. And now you're working on defense. And so we're working on rotations, and you can work on multiple things. It's just basically breaking down what you do on offense or breaking down what you do on defense and putting 3 or 4 guys in the spots where you are usually aligned, and then just playing out of that. So yeah, this isn't like guy up at the top of the key, two guys on the wing. Let's play 3-on-3, check it up and play. We got a small sided game here. It's probably not going to help your team in whatever you're running, I guess, unless you're a 5-out team and the guy up at the top's your 5, or the guy that's at the top, and you run everything through him, which we have done. We have actually played some small sided games. We transition down a lot of times in 5-out, and so we'll early on in the year we'll play 3-man action up there at the top and do a lot of away or swing or zoom stuff or whatever. So whatever actions you run, break it down into a 2 or 3 or 4-man action and play a small sided game in it. It's not the game. It's not so much. I try to tell coaches the bad thing is I'm communicating through social media something that's not actually true. And it's that what I'm showing you is the secret sauce. The drill that I set up is not the secret sauce. It's what you're teaching them and what they're learning within whatever you just set up. I'm just trying to recreate something that's happening in our 5-on-5 so that they can process the 3-man action or the 4-man action, so that they can build up to the 5-on-5 action. And that's where, just from having coached college, I get freshmen in, and it's like deer in the headlights. There's so much going on the floor they can't process it. And what you end up with is a slow reacting, slow playing player. And these small sided games accelerate that and decrease the deer in the headlights look, because now they learn where to look. They know what's the most important thing that's happening in the next action and can ignore the other things that were distracting them early on. So, so it's not rocket science to come up with it. I'm probably just the guy that gets out his phone and remembers to record it. There's plenty of other people that are doing it out there.
Yeah, it's so important. Like, it's, as you said, you're helping train these kids, their eyes and their feel for, rather than having 5-on-5 and having to read 4 help side defenders, they're only reading 1 or 2 and can get really good at that read, and then add your 3rd defender, 4th defender, whatever that is, and then now you're good in 5-on-5. I think, as you mentioned, once you get older guys, you don't have to do that as much. Those guys are already kind of trained on that, and you really can focus on the 5-on-5.
Yep.
One of the other things you mentioned there is the small sided games not being new. And I think I see that debate on like social media about like guys like and upset or happy otherwise about like small sided games. Like, it's just the name. Like, we finally coined a name for 3-on-3, and it's created like all this debate about stuff. And like you mentioned, I think people have been playing 3-on-3 since probably the invention of basketball, but we want to find something to argue about with a name or whatever it is. It's great.
Yeah. I do think that there are plenty of things though that we've done for a long time that don't do them just because you've done them for a long time and some guy won a championship doing those things. This is from the teacher side of me, but I'm always trying to find out, is there a better way for us to do things? Is there something that keeps them more engaged or helps them learn faster or helps them understand faster? And I actually think that you shortchange your players when you say, I'm going to do it this way because that's how we've always done it and that's how it works. Is there a way that they can learn faster or learn better? Because if it becomes this is the way we've always done it, it's about you. And I don't think that's not good. That it shouldn't be about you. This should be about them. And so if I can help them learn better, or learn faster, or just make it simpler for them, why would you not do it a different way? So keep an open mind and be humble about it.
Yeah, and also our learners are our players, whatever we want to call it. They're changing so much too. Our basketball players now are so much different in just how they learn and process information than it was 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's so important to understand that as coaches, that we do have to evolve every year of how kids are and young men are learning everything.
Yep, for sure.
Last thing I got for you is a 30-second timeout. So I'm going to give you a end of game situation here, Coach, and hopefully you can drop something to win your team the game. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Okay, so your situation here, you are down 2 with 11 seconds left and have a sideline entry. So sideline out of bounds, front court, 11 seconds left, down 2.
We'll probably just go with like a box, and I'm going to put my big on the far bottom block, and then probably either big on that side or maybe even we've done this last year. We ended up having the big on like the near side block. And like our 3 or our 1 on the far side block, and then the 2 is on the near side elbow, so our best shooter, and then our 4 on the far side elbow. and the 2 comes to the ball like he's going to receive the ball, but that really is just a distraction because you're going to run the old winner play and have that back screen and throw it over the top for the big. Now we have a 7-footer, so it's kind of a disadvantage, like not fair to others who are listening to this. But when you have somebody like that, you can just kind of throw it up over the top and he can catch it. And while that ball's in the air, the 4, who was on that weak side elbow, comes across and sets up kind of a back screen, a blind screen for your shooter. And so the big catches it instead of shooting it like you see in most winter plays. You throw it back to the shooter who's coming to the ball there on the wing to shoot it. There were a couple of teams. I think Golden State ran it this last year, and then Montana State won a game off of it. So it popped up again about halfway through the season. But just getting you a 3, I think, again, it's not so much like just it was a cool play and let's do it. But I'm always trying to find what are the actions that are the hardest to guard. And flares at any level are difficult. Anything where you have 2 actions in a row is different, which is why we all love anything Zoom, Chicago, pistol, whatever it is, because it's very difficult for the defense to guard a screen or guard a handoff and immediately guard something else. And so all of our actions, all of our sets really, I've kind of designed them to, I've taken bits and pieces or either just stolen a play completely when it's involved something that I just mentioned there. And I have a, why am I going to try to do 50 different things if I can go straight to the thing that's going to give me the best chance to win, or it's going to be the hardest thing to guard. So you'll even see what I just described. We'll do stuff like that, like blind stuff like that, in our half court offense. We'll do that in out of bounds plays. I'll draw something up new on the sidelines. And when people hear that, they're like, I could never do that, or that's stupid. You should never drop something that you haven't practiced. But the thing is that we've practiced those actions so many times that all I need to do is move my players around and the alignment might look different, but they're still running the same action. And when I communicated that to my guys and that clicked for them, they're unfazed by any kind of quote unquote new play that I have, because I don't ever drop something that we've never done before action wise. I do think you get yourself in trouble when you start drawing up like new stuff and it doesn't tie to anything that they already have understanding of. And so I probably went on way too long with that, with what you were actually asking. But like I said, the thing that really matters is what's going to be the hardest thing to guard, and stuff that's blind that forces a team to either switch. And if you switch, you got a mismatch or a slip to the rim, or they're chasing something over the top that they didn't see coming. And even if they know that it's coming, chasing it over the top, they get hit for half a second or whatever, and it creates a small advantage enough for you to be able to get a last second shot up. So that's probably what I'd go with.
That's perfect. I love it. That's a great way to kind of talk about drawing stuff up in general, man. I think, as you mentioned, like if you teach whatever, a stagger and ball screens and all those things, you can stack those actions. It's just a matter of understanding. It's the same exact read, just depends on the order or maybe where the ball's placed or where you're inbounding and all that stuff. But all the same reads, doesn't matter where it's at or when you're doing it.
Yep, for sure.
Awesome, Coach. Well, that's all I got for you. I appreciate you dropping some knowledge here and taking your time, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
Anything before we leave? Anything you want to share out that you're working on that you want to kind of put out into the community that to check out for stuff you got going on?
Yeah, I mean, just if you have any questions or anything, probably the easiest way is just to hit me up on Twitter or X. I post stuff pretty frequently on Instagram, games and that kind of thing. And, I even use that as like my drill library. Part of the reason I post this, so I can go back and look through things. So if you're in need of a kind of a drill library, feel free to go check that out. You can find small sided games, and that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me or find out stuff that I'm doing.
Love it. What's your ad on those two?
On Twitter, it's at Tony W. Miller. And then on Instagram, it's at coach.miller.
Awesome. Perfect. Appreciate you, Coach. Thank you.
For sure.